By the early 20th century, the world stood on the brink of catastrophe. Europe was divided by rival alliances, aggressive nationalism, imperial ambitions, and an arms race unlike anything seen before. When war erupted in 1914, it would grow into the deadliest conflict humanity had ever known. For the first 3 years, the United States remained officially neutral. But in 1917, America entered the First World War, and an intervention that would change the course of the conflict and reshape global history forever. At the outbreak of World War I in August 1914, the United States was a rising industrial power but not yet a global military force. President Woodrow Wilson declared neutrality, believing America should remain above European conflicts. Many Americans agreed. The nation was deeply divided by ethnic ties. Millions of German Americans, Irish Americans, and immigrants from across Europe lived in the United States, each with emotional connections to the war. Despite official neutrality, the United States could not remain untouched. American factories supplied food, weapons, and raw materials to the Allied powers, primarily Britain and France. Though trade with Germany existed, the British naval blockade severely limited it. Over time, American economic interests became increasingly tied to an Allied victory. As the war dragged on, it descended into a brutal stalemate. The Western Front became a landscape of trenches, barbed wire, and mud, stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border. Millions of soldiers lived and died in horrific conditions. Machine guns, artillery, poison gas, and trench warfare turned the conflict into a war of attrition. Germany, facing starvation and economic collapse due to the British blockade, turned to a dangerous strategy: unrestricted submarine warfare. German U-boats attacked ships without warning, including civilian and neutral vessels, in an attempt to cut off supplies to Britain. In May 1915, a German submarine sank the British ocean liner RMS Lusitania. Nearly 1,200 people were killed, including 128 Americans. Though the ship carried ammunition, the attack shocked the American public. Germany temporarily scaled back submarine attacks after U.S. protests, but the damage to German-American relations was permanent. By 1916, the war had consumed Europe. Battles such as Verdun and the Somme resulted in millions of casualties, with little territorial gain. Britain and France were exhausted. Russia was unstable. Germany knew that if the United States entered the war, the balance would shift decisively. In January 1917, Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare, calculating that it could defeat Britain before American troops could arrive in large numbers. This gamble proved fatal. Soon after, British intelligence intercepted the Zimmermann telegram, a secret message from Germany to Mexico. It proposed a military alliance. If Mexico attacked the United States, Germany would help it regain lost territories, including Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. When the telegram was made public, American outrage exploded. President Wilson, who had won re-election in 1916 under the slogan, "He kept us out of war," now faced an unavoidable reality. On April 2, 1917, he addressed Congress, declaring that the world must be made safe for democracy. 4 days later, the United States officially entered World War I on the side of the Allies. America's entry transformed the war, but not immediately. The U.S. military was unprepared for modern warfare. The regular army was small, and training systems were outdated. Congress passed the Selective Service Act, drafting millions of men into the armed forces. Over 2 million American soldiers would eventually be sent to Europe as part of the American Expeditionary Forces. General John J. Pershing was appointed commander of American forces. Unlike European generals, Pershing insisted that American Troops fight as an independent army rather than being absorbed into British or French units. He emphasized mobility, discipline, and offensive action. Meanwhile, the American home front mobilized for total war. Factories converted to war production. Women entered industrial jobs in unprecedented numbers. The government launched massive propaganda campaigns, urging citizens to buy war bonds, conserve food, and support the troops. Civil liberties suffered. The Espionage Act of 1917 and the Sedition Act of 1918 restricted free speech and punished dissent. Anti-war activists, socialists, and immigrants were targeted. German Americans faced discrimination and German culture was suppressed. In Europe, American troops began arriving in large numbers by 1918. Though inexperienced, they brought fresh energy and morale to exhausted Allied forces. Their presence alone boosted confidence on the Western Front. Germany launched a final massive offensive in the spring of 1918, hoping to break the Allies before American strength could fully materialize. Initially successful, the offensive ultimately failed. American troops played a crucial role in stopping German advances at battles such as Cantigny, Château-Thierry, and Belleau Wood. The Battle of Belleau Wood became legendary. U.S. Marines fought fiercely against German forces, earning a reputation for toughness and determination. It was here that American troops proved they could withstand and overcome the brutal realities of modern warfare. By summer 1918, the tide had turned. Allied forces, reinforced by Americans, launched the 100 Days Offensive. American soldiers participated in major operations, including the Battle of Saint-Mihiel and the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, the largest battle in U.S. military history at that time. The Meuse-Argonne campaign involved over 1 million American soldiers and resulted in more than 100,000 casualties. It was slow, costly, and chaotic, but ultimately successful. German lines collapsed under relentless pressure. Germany's allies began to surrender. Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria-Hungary all exited the war. Facing internal revolution, starvation, and military defeat, Germany sought an armistice. On November 11, 1918, at 11 a.m., the guns fell silent. World War I was over. The cost was staggering. More than 16 million people were dead. The United States had lost over 116,000 soldiers, half of them to disease, including the deadly influenza pandemic of 1918. President Wilson traveled to Europe as a global hero. He proposed his vision for a lasting peace through the 14 points, emphasizing self-determination, free trade, disarmament, and the creation of the League of Nations. At the Paris Peace Conference, however, European powers prioritized punishment over reconciliation. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany, sowing resentment that would later fuel World War II. Though Wilson championed the League of Nations, the U.S. Senate refused to ratify the treaty. America retreated into isolationism, despite having played a decisive role in ending the war. The First World War marked a turning point for the United States. It emerged as a global military and economic power. American influence extended across diplomacy, finance, and international politics. Yet the war also left deep scars at home and abroad. Veterans struggled to reintegrate. Civil liberties debates continued. The world order remained fragile. America's participation in World War I lasted only 19 months, but its impact was permanent. It proved that the United States could no longer remain isolated from global conflicts. The war reshaped American identity, foreign policy, and responsibility on the world stage. World War I was meant to be the war to end all wars. Instead, it became the beginning of a turbulent Century I in which the United States would play a central and unavoidable role.